Right, guys, I think let's get started. So thank you so much for joining us today on this webinar, and happy National Apprenticeship Week. So throughout the duration of this presentation, we're going to look at how you can grow your career as a teaching assistant using the apprenticeship model. I'm very pleased to be joined by my colleague Scarlet, who's here today. She's going to be helping me host this webinar. I'm really excited as well to have some guest speakers here, and that's Phil Matthews from the University of Chichester Academies Trust, and Katie Walker, who is a ex-apprentice, I should say now, just successfully completed her level 3, and she's with Brown C of E Primary School. So throughout the webinar, we're going to have a look at who we are. So who is LMP? I'll give you an overview of our teaching assistant development pathways. We'll then go to conversation with our guest speakers. We'll touch on some key information that you need to know, and then we will do the live Q&A at the end. And as I say, please do use the Q&A box for all of those questions.
How do I use this button? No.
Oh. So who are we? So we are LMP Group. So the LMP Group is comprised of 3 companies, and we have a collective mission to inspire ambition. So that's LMP Education, Inspire ATA, and LMP Action. We provide opportunities and support social change across the UK with a focus on education and social impact. So we work together to bring about positive and sustainable development, and we serve schools, trusts, businesses, and individuals nationwide. The 3 groups are aligned by our 4 core values, and they are have compassion, ensure equality, be inspiring, and take action. So our main service areas are our apprenticeships through LMP Education. So LMP is an apprenticeship training provider. We work nationally, and we support schools and MATs, local authorities, all to embed apprenticeship provision into their current CPD offering. And these strategies are aimed at supporting staff retention, succession planning, and to help drive exceptional standards of education by closing skills gaps. We're well known in the space, and we support hundreds of schools and businesses nationwide. We work with the likes of the University of Chichester Academies Trust, Oasis Community Learning, ARC Schools, Outward Grange, you name them, they know who we are. And we also attract new talent into the sector through our apprenticeship recruitment service. And that facility at LMP last year alone recruited over 600 apprentices into sector. We also have Inspire ATA, which is our flexi job training agency. They hire apprentices on behalf of employers and host them out. Now, this is a great way to address the rising cost of supply staff and gives employers flexibility in terms of duration and contract terms. We then have AEB, also known now as ASF funded programs. These provide opportunities for individuals to continue their learning through CPD provision. And we collaborate closely with schools and parents to ensure that the ethos of lifelong learning is embedded and supported into our kind of collective approach. And then finally, we have our alternate education provision, where LMP Action provide bespoke alternative provision packages that suit learner needs through restorative practices all the way through to vocational qualifications, which can be held on-site or off-site. Now, I think this picture sums up our impact really nicely. So all of those dots equate to an apprentice that joined us last year in 2024. So last year, we successfully supported 1,141 people into apprenticeships across many schools, MATs, early years settings, and businesses. Now, what's really interesting about that is that over 50% of those apprentices were TAs. And we actually train more TAs than any other provider in the country. And we do it really well. Our success rates are way above national average. And of those that completed last year, over 55% of them completed their apprenticeship with a distinction grade. We're also very pleased to say that we were voted the best apprenticeship training provider by RateMyApprenticeship Awards last year. And I think that hopefully gives you some reassurance as to who we are. You know, we received that recognition from feedback from our apprentices. So it wasn't something we gave ourselves. So yeah, hopefully that gives you kind of a little insight as to who we are as a provider. Now, I think it's fair to say that the education landscape has changed drastically over the last few years. The role of a TA looks significantly different now as it did 5-10 years ago. But in the heart of every classroom, teaching assistants ignite the spark for learning. And I think the reason why here at LMP we do the TA training so well is because you TAs align so well with our core values. You do have compassion. You do ensure equality, you are inspiring, and you do take action. Now, with that, we have been able to create a development pathway that is specific to you. We really see your value, and we know that the work that you do in schools is fantastic. And with that, we've really tried to carve a pathway for you to make sure that you get all the opportunities to develop and become the best that you can be in schools. So we have our level 3 teaching assistant apprenticeship. We also offer the level 4 Hilter, which is a commercial offering. And we are really pleased to launch the level 5 specialist teaching assistant. Now, what you'll see with all of these is there is a selection of pathways that you can choose. So not only do we deliver the standard, we give you that opportunity to embed your training. Now on that, I'm going to hand over to my colleague Scarlet, who is going to go into some more detail around the level 3 training.
Thank you, Vicky. So today I'm going to be talking about the 3 different pathways as well as what's included in the level 3 teaching assistant apprenticeship. So apprenticeships are great for adding new staff members to the team, but it's also for existing staff members at school. So for the pathways, we do have the sports teaching assistant apprenticeship. So that's for staff members that are working closely with their PE department to deliver quality PE lessons to their students. We also have the SEN teaching assistant program, which, as you can imagine, is very, very popular, especially with the growing needs of the students or the children that we are supporting in schools. We also have the standard teaching assistant program as well, and that's mainly for staff members that are working closely with the class teacher to ensure that the children within the lessons are getting the support that they need, whereas the SEN program mainly focuses on supporting children with additional needs. So that could be children that maybe have dyslexia, autism, ADHD, and we'll talk about in a minute about what additional CPD a staff member would get within this program. So within the level 3 teaching assistant apprenticeship, we have 6 milestones. So within every milestone, we have 2 to 3 units of work, and these are a mixture of different types of assessments. So once a month, you'd meet with your tutor remotely, or it could be face-to-face, depending on what your needs are. And they would go through each of these units with you. So the first unit tends to be around sort of what is our role as the teaching assistant, as well as talking about professional development and creating professional development targets that we can aim to inspire to achieve at the end of the programme. The second milestone is all around safeguarding. And as you can imagine, the umbrella of safeguarding, there's quite a lot that goes under that. So it's looking at the mistakes of the past. It's also looking at identifying, signs of abuse and neglect. It's also looking at what we can do to protect our children, but also how to follow whistleblowing procedures at school. We'll also be looking at health and safety within this unit as well. Within milestone 3, we'll be looking at child development, as well as biological and environmental factors that can affect children's learning and development, and yet again, strategies that we can use to overcome that, as well as looking at how we can positively support children's behaviour for learning. Within milestone 4, we'll be looking at SEN strategies. So yeah, again, it's making sure that we've got all the tools that we need to effectively work in partnership with the class teacher or subject lead, as well as the SENCO, to ensure that we are meeting their individual needs. So it's looking at visual aids, it's looking at resources, it's looking at strategies that we can use to support the children that we work with. Whereas the next unit will be looking at curriculum. So you'll be looking at the national curriculum from the primary part as well as the secondary, so you can see where they should be versus where they are, so we can fill in any gaps that they might have. So I know quite a lot of SEN students are going up to secondary school without sort of the fundamentals that they should know from primary school. And yet again, that might be due to their individual needs, but it's also looking at different ways of assessing children and how we can track their progress as well as their development, and then yet again filling in gaps that they might have. And then the last milestone at the end of the 14 to 16 months is called the endpoint assessment. And throughout your duration on the apprenticeship, you'll be fully supported by your tutor, who will do mocks with you, and everything that you've learned during your time on the apprenticeship with us, you will then it will then come up again at the end. So everything that you do at the end will be taught to you, or you'll cover during the time on the programme. So the endpoint assessment for the level 3 teaching assistant qualification is a 2-hour observation. So again, the staff member can pick and choose what they will be observed in and what time they would like their endpoint assessor to arrive at school. And also there's a 90-minute professional discussion where they'll do mocks with their tutor. So every question that they could possibly ask, they would have covered during the apprenticeship, but also during their mock professional discussions. So within the SEN programme of the teaching assistant qualification, we do have, you will have access to 5 different SEN specialised workshops. So it's mainly looking at EHCPs and the referral process, as well as how we can support children by working in partnership with parents and carers, external professionals, as well as staff members at school. We'll also be looking at, yet again, how we can support with transitions, how we can support with ensuring that we have all of the knowledge to support de-escalations. So whether the child is displaying challenging behaviour, it's ensuring that we've got that positive behaviour for learning in place. We'll also be looking at the curriculum, so you'll be looking at the enrichment model as well as the primary as well as the secondary curriculum, and how we can create an inclusive environment at school for all learners to thrive. And then we'll also be looking at how we can tailor some of the assessments so they are very inclusive, and we are then using a variety of different strategies, resources and resources to help the children that we are closely working with that might have special educational needs. If you're unable to go to any of these webinars, they are usually recorded and then sent to you afterwards, but they're usually at a time that's more convenient for you at school. So I know quite a lot of the workshops tend to be at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock. So these we try to do them at a time that would be more convenient for you at school. And then the last thing that I want to add today, we've also got Ansphere, and Ansphere is a fantastic online CPD platform that you would also have access to. So it has 90 plus CPD training courses, and every program that is on our Ansphere platform has been designed by experts in their fields. So yet again, it'd be looking at supporting children with ADHD, autism, it'd be looking at how to support children with mental health, it'd be looking at how to support children with medical needs. You'd also be looking at, how we can support children with reading and writing. There's also ones about classroom management in there, and they're all designed to build up your confidence, but also have the knowledge and skills to be able to develop your practice further in the classroom.
Thank you, Scarlett. Now, we are incredibly proud to be the first to bring to market the Level 5 Specialist Teaching Assistant Apprenticeship. It's something that we've advocated for a long time. As I said before, we are the biggest provider of teaching assistant apprenticeships, and therefore we hear your voice. So as I say, we advocated for this for some time. And I think what's really exciting or interesting, to hear is that in our first month of telling people we were launching this programme, we had over 1,200 expressions of interest. So that just tells us that not only is there a need for this qualification, but there is a want for it in the sector as well. So yes, we are extremely excited to have launched this programme now. The Level 5 Specialist Teaching Assistant is all about empowering educational excellence through advanced teaching support. A Level 5 Specialist TA can be found in primary, secondary, special schools, alternate provision, further education institutes such as sixth forms and colleges, and also a range of other educational settings such as music hub or forest schools. They work alongside colleagues to inspire learners to progress and achieve well. And this does allow you to specialise. So the Level 5 has 3 different pathways that you can choose from. And it's really important that when you're choosing your pathway, you do so as a reflection of the role that you have in school. So if you are the phonics lead, so if you lead phonics interventions, then you may choose to go down the curriculum specialism pathway. If you support SEND in your setting, then the SEND specialist would be the pathway for you. And again, for social and emotional well-being specialists. So the Level 5 is an 18-month programme. That's 15 months on programme and 3 months for your endpoint assessment. And it has with it 7 key milestones. So what you can expect to learn throughout this programme is regulation and guidance. So you'll be looking at understanding and implementing statutory and non-statutory frameworks and fostering inclusive, sustainable and enabling learning environments. You'll look at advancing learning, so theories of learning in developmental contexts, effective learning strategies and overcoming barriers. You'll look at planning and assessment, so understanding learners and promoting inclusion, integrating curriculum and planning and assessments and effective assessments for improved outcomes. You'll also look at professionalism, so that professional growth, resilience and ethical practices. You'll look at communication, so the learner voice, professional support, effective teamwork and communication, and building collaborative relationships. You'll then, in milestone 6, look at that specialism. So whether that is the SEND specialism, the curriculum specialism, or the social and emotional well-being specialism. And the final milestone is your endpoint assessment preparation. So as Scarlet very nicely touched on before, the endpoint assessment is the final quality check at the end of your programme. So as a provider, we're no longer able to give that to ourselves. So we would have somebody external come in and complete the endpoint assessment with you. It's not scary. You will be supported throughout your whole programme with us to make sure that at the end of your practical period, you are feeling confident and ready to go through to endpoint assessment. For the Level 5, that looks like an observation with questions. So then the endpoint assessor would come in and observe you in practice, and then they would ask questions for further clarity. And the second method of EPA is a professional discussion, which is underpinned by your portfolio of evidence. So the apprenticeships are all about gaining new knowledge and then using that knowledge to put it into practice and inform how you go about your role. So throughout the programme, whether that be the Level 3 or the Level 5, you will be building a beautiful picture of what you do day to day. So you'll be building a portfolio that shows us how you've taken your new knowledge and used it to inform practice.
Our apprentices are invaluable to the progress of our children. They mean that we're able to facilitate lots of additional intervention, as well as make sure we've got lots of scaffold and stretch for our children and helping them to ensure that they reach their full potential.
The main benefit, I would say, is getting the experience while you're working, rather than it all being college-based. You're put into a school, you're doing everything a normal TA would do, you're getting all the training.
I'm increasingly looking at how we can broaden our apprenticeship offer. We do a lot of work, like I mentioned, on teaching assistants. We do business administration, sports coaching. These are some of the apprenticeships we utilise in a big way.
I've been supported a lot through this programme by my school, who give me the time to do any assignments that I need to do, who help me with my career as well and my personal development.
We've had some great successes and achievements made by our apprenticeships. a high percentage of our apprentices achieve a distinction, which is fantastic.
An absolutely lovely video. So thank you, Scarlet was involved in the creation of that. So thank you, Scarlet. It's great to hear kind of the message come from the horse's mouth, as they say. So at this point, I would really like to introduce our special guests for this evening, for today, sorry. So we have Philip Matthews from the University of Chichester Academy Trust. Hi, Phil.
Hello there, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. And
Good.
you've got Katie Walker from Brown's Church of England Primary School. Hi, Katie.
Hi.
So I would really like to just have an open conversation with you both, if that's okay, so that you can share your experiences with everybody that's listening today. So I have some questions that I would like to ask you. So Phil, if I can start with you, I'm really interested to hear, why did your trust choose apprenticeships as a method of upskilling staff? And how has that approach benefited both you as a trust and your TAs?
I think it's important to note that there's the two different apprenticeships that we focus on. So the different apprenticeship routes. So we've utilised LMP for recruiting apprentices into the TA roles, and we found that to be really, really successful. I mean, one of our schools has probably got 3 or 4 apprentices currently underway at the moment, and that does. TAs is quite a difficult job to recruit for sometimes, and the feedback that we've had from that particular school is that when interviewing the TAs apprentices, that they have actually proven to be a lot more existing TAs that they've also interviewed for other roles. So it's sort of tapping into a new source of people, basically, that maybe hadn't considered becoming a TA, but when they realise what the role involves, they're really passionate about it. With regards to the existing members of staff, I think it's important to invest in their future and invest in their professional development. So, I mean, I'm a real cheerleader for apprenticeships anyway. And, you know, I push the apprenticeship route across the whole trust and to everyone. And if the more people that we can get receiving a formal qualification, I think is great. I mean, it helps with retention of staff because you're showing that you're actually investing in their futures, and also reputationally as well. If you've got staff members that have got the backup of that professional qualification, I think the reputation of the trust is improved by, you know, you've got people that have got formal training to back up their normal day-to-day duties.
Yeah, and if I'm right, Phil, our conversation started a long time ago because you were on an apprenticeship, weren't you? So you are an apprentice.
Yeah, yeah. I was an apprentice myself. So
yeah, so you've experienced it firsthand.
Yeah, I've been there, done that. So that was a requirement of this role. So yeah, I've been through that. Obviously, not in it was a CIPD apprenticeship related to my role. So. But yeah, I can see the value and the benefit of apprenticeships, and I think even in the central HR office here, we've got 3 people that are currently undergoing apprenticeships in, you know, finance and HR. So it's not just the teaching assistant side of things that I look at as well.
Yeah, and I think you touched on a really good point there, Phil, actually. I think in the sector, we do a lot around kind of teacher development, and we've got lots of teacher, you know, routes into teaching. And I think when we train a teacher, we kind of give them that stamp of approval that, you know, UNICAT or Oasis or whatever trust it is has kind of given them that seal of approval, and you send them off into sector, don't you, knowing that you've created a really valuable resource for the sector. You know, you've given that teacher everything they need to be the best that they can be. And apprenticeships are brilliant ways to do that at every level. So as you say, it's building that kind of that reputation of the trust as well, is that you're not just supporting your trust, you're supporting the whole sector by training up these qualified high quality teaching assistants as well.
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah,
and
so
we've similar to what you've got there, we've got our own career pathway as well. So you had a slide earlier which had that information on, but we've got one that's very similar to that, but it's got all the different roles within our academies, and then with pathways to how someone can get from point A to point B and what sort of qualification is required to get there. So there's a very, very visual picture there of how someone can actually develop their career within the trust.
I love that document. It's a very good one, actually. And Katie, if I can come to you now, as somebody who's kind of directly benefited from an apprenticeship, how did the opportunity to upskill through it impact your professional development?
So I'd actually been working within the school for a couple of years before sort of taking on the apprenticeship, but it's massively sort of boosted my confidence, and knowing that I've got the skills behind me to know that I am doing the right thing sort of in a day-to-day role. A lot of the sort of courses that we did, it gives you more insight into the way sort of children are developing, and the reason why they might need certain support. So it gives you different strategies to help them on a daily basis.
Fabulous. Yeah, so as Scarlet touched on before, it's building that kind of toolkit of support and opportunities and different tactics to use when facing with these challenges that you may have day to day. And hopefully the apprenticeship has allowed you to kind of put that knowledge into practice. As we said before, that's all about, that's what apprenticeships are about understanding the theory behind what you do day to day. So those kind of support measures and things. So if I can stay with you, Katie, actually. So you have completed your level 3, congratulations, recently passed your EPA, and hoping to progress on to the level 5. So how has your role evolved since kind of undertaking the apprenticeship? Has there been any developments?
There's more. I'm doing a lot more in terms of interventions with different children, covering more things. Sort of before, I was doing a lot more in terms of sort of phonics and stuff like that, whereas now it's more, there's more different things that I'm helping with, and just more opportunity for me to do extra support with the children that I'm working with.
Lovely. And Phil, from a trust perspective, what role do you see apprenticeships playing in kind of developing a sustainably skilled workforce?
I think they're a key role, because not everyone wants to go to university to advance, at the start of their working career. And apprenticeships can fit into people's personal and work situations, so it gives an opportunity for everyone to be able to develop their career without having too much of an impact on their sort of work-life balance as well. And moving forward, I think the focus on apprenticeships is only going to increase, to be honest, and the promotion of them. They are vital for, as I mentioned before, getting some professional qualification, and sort of underpinning your experiences as well. Like you might have a TA that's worked in a school for 10 years, but they've not got the sort of the theory behind what they're doing. And an apprenticeship can obviously provide that theory, underpin their experiences, and give them a recognised qualification to show that they have got that knowledge now.
Yeah, so it's bridging that gap from education and industry, isn't it? So really being able to put that theory into practice. And also I think this is where we see the such a high volume of interest in the level 5, because not everybody wants to become a teacher. So actually being able to have that next step development in the level 5 is really key to kind of continuing to grab hold and retain those staff members, but allowing them to develop. So my final question to you both then, what advice would you give to the TAs that are on the webinar today, that are considering an apprenticeship for their career development? If I can start with you, Katie, what advice would you give?
I think it's a really great opportunity. It is something that you can fit in well around sort of everything else that you do. I've got 3 children at home, so fitting that in and working in the school full time, it was something that was achievable.
So work-life balance. I think since COVID as well, I think we've all we've got this new kind of lease of life, haven't we, that actually you can have a work-life balance. And I think one of the conversations I have quite often is people that maybe initially got into the role of being a teaching assistant because it fit in with family life. And I love nothing more than being able to say it can be your career as well, and you can progress and you can still maintain that work-life balance. So I'm so pleased that actually you've lived and breathed that. So thank you so much. And what about you, Phil? What advice would you give?
I think it would be grasp the opportunity if you can. From a trust perspective here, we've had quite a lot of interest in existing TAs that have done the level 3, wanting to progress onto the level 5. And yeah, as you've mentioned there, Vicky, it's not just a job. It can be looked at as, you can progress as a career progression basically now with these extra qualifications that you can get. So yeah, if you have the opportunity, I would suggest grabbing it with both hands. We've mentioned it, both myself and Katie and yourself, Vicky, there's the flexibility of it fitting around your lifestyle. There's also the flexibility of it within the workplace as well, the off-the-job training hours. It's not necessarily the traditional, you have one day out of away from your core job. There are creative ways of being able to accommodate the off-the-job training hours, which is a benefit to the school, the head teacher, the MAP, but it's also, I think, a benefit to the individual as well. So it's worth looking at what creative ways you can do that as well.
Yeah, lovely. Well, thank you so much for your input there, guys. I really appreciate you taking the time out to speak to us all today. So thank you so much. So we'll just continue. Next slide. So everybody on the call today, there are some key facts that we think you need to know in order to progress onto an apprenticeship. And it may be that your trust lead or your head teacher has some questions around, well, how are we funding it and what does it mean for you? So if I can touch firstly on the kind of funding around apprenticeships. So we went through an apprenticeship reform a number of years ago, and government introduced the apprenticeship levy. And the majority of schools will either fall into as a levy paying employer. So if you're in a big multi-academy trust, for example, your school will be contributing to the trust apprenticeship levy. It could be that you fall under co-investment, so you are not part of an apprenticeship levy organisation, so government will fund the majority of your apprenticeship for you. Or you could have a very kind employer that could do some levy gifting for you. So these programs that we spoke about today are funded through the apprenticeship levy. And what we quite often see is that schools that contribute to the levy don't utilise it. And what it would mean for you if you were to enrol onto a TA apprenticeship or onto any of our programs, it means that your school get to see a return on that investment. So you can utilise the levy. I won't scare you with the figures, but last year, millions and millions of pounds got clawed back by government on unspent levy funds. So at LMP, or I am anyway, I'm on a personal mission to try and make that less next year or this year. So yeah, you will probably be contributing to the apprenticeship levy in some capacity, whether you're an academy school, or if you are an LA maintained school, then you'll be contributing to the local authorities levy. Outside of that, you would be co-investment, so government would support the funding of your apprenticeship. Now, there are some things around eligibility requirements for our courses, and as you can see, there's a hot off the press thing there on screen, because there was an announcement made today, which I'll go into now. But in terms of all of our programs, so if you wanted to enroll onto the level 3 or the level 5, for example, the entry requirements are that you couldn't already hold the same qualification. For example, if you 10 years ago completed the supporting teaching and learning in schools level 3, then you already have the equivalent of the level 3 teaching assistant standard, and therefore you don't have enough scope for new learning for us to, confidently put you through an apprenticeship and know that you're going to benefit from it. So that is one entry requirement, so you can't already have the qualification you're hoping to enroll onto. In that instant, or in that scenario that I've stated then, we would be confidently telling you that the level 5 is your next step. So there's always an option. It's something that we are really passionate about, is making sure that if the answer is no for one program, that we are able to kind of advise you on what to do next. The other entry requirements is that we need to make sure that academically you're able to cope with the level of writing that is required for you throughout your program. So we would look at your maths and English. We'd do a short initial assessments with you to see what that level is. But actually, hot off the press is government have just scrapped the requirement of maths and English for those who have not previously achieved if you are age 19 or over. So if you're an adult learner and you can't find your certificates for maths and English, then that is okay. You now have the option to complete maths and English alongside your training. Now, you are a teaching assistant, you are supporting teaching and learning in schools, so there is real value in you completing those elements if you need to. But now that is not mandated, you do not need to. If you are age 16 to 18, then there is the requirements still there, so we would still work with you and support you through completing those elements. But part of the eligibility check, we would do those assessments and just make sure that we're confident that we're going to support you in the right way and that we're setting you up for success. Now, Phil touched on it before, off-the-job training, but probably the most confusing term anybody's ever created. So off-the-job training, the statement itself always lends people to think that in order to do off-the-job training, you have to be out of your school setting. It makes you think that it's based on a venue, that you are out at a college or you're at home completing it. But really, off-the-job training is those recognized moments of new learning, and quite often you are doing that in your working week. So day to day, I use, for example, I am a question person. I ask 1,000 questions a day, but there is real value in that kind of Q&A that you have with your line manager or your colleague, because it's in that moment where you ask a question and somebody gives you the information that actually you will adapt your approach and how you go about the task that you are doing. So it's about recognizing those moments of new learning. It could be your inset days, your fire safety drills, your safeguarding updates. It could be, your staff meetings in the morning. Maybe you're reviewing EHCP plans. These are all naturally occurring moments of what we call off-the-job training. And throughout the apprenticeship, what we'll do is we would support you in kind of building a picture of what you do with that throughout the programme. So we use a system called Bud. That's your e-portfolio, and it's got a really nice bar on there where you can just type in what you've done as off-the-job training. But that does also include those moments where you are with your assessor, so where they are doing talk sessions with you, one-to-one support sessions or reviews. And you will obviously need time in your working week. We talk about that work-life balance. You need time in your working week where you can focus on writing your assignments, and that is what off-the-job training is. So hopefully that explains that very confusing term, but it is very manageable. We're very lucky in the sector that we are, that, you know, schools you are invested in terms of staff training that already happens. I know every school has a whole timetable of updates and training that you do throughout the year. So we would capture that, but we would also capture the time that you spent being supported by your assessor. Now, should you wish to register your interest, please do scan the QR code that's on the screen, and that would take you to our booking system, and you can book a call in with one of the team. And that initial call would be an IAG call, so an information, advice and guidance call to determine the right course for you. We'd also go, you know, through an overview of the course that's of interest to you, the expectations, and we can answer any questions that you have, and we do that eligibility check as well. So that's your initial kind of step with us. I encourage you to, you know, do that. One of the things that I'm a big believer in here at LMP is making informed choices. So booking a call with us doesn't mean you're signing on the dotted line. It just means that you're getting all the information that you can to make an informed choice as to whether this program is for you. And you are welcome to bring your line manager along with you on that if they maybe have questions for us as well. But of all the programs we deliver here at LMP, the teaching assistant is so valuable, and we do it really, really well. So I'm very confident that your journey with us would be very successful. Now, as I said at the beginning, it is National Apprenticeship Week. So we have a whole host of other webinars happening for the remainder of the week. So if you're interested in any of the other webinars that we are hosting, then please do, again, scan the QR code and register your interest. Even if you can't make it, I would suggest registering anyway, because then you would get a copy of the recording and the slides to go with it, so you'll be able to get all the information. So I'll just leave that on screen for a moment. But I think that brings us to the end of our presentation. So we'll just come on to some Q&A now. Thank you. So Scarlet, can you see in the chat if there's any questions for us?
So the first question I've got says, can you study totally in your own time out of school hours?
So do you want to take that? Should I?
You can take it.
Yeah. So to comply with funding rules around apprenticeships for the teaching assistant level 3 and level 5, then your employer is committing to give you time. So although we try and be realistic, we can't say you will never take anything home. It is your right to have training time in the working week. So yeah, to be compliant with the funding rules, you would need time in the working week to complete your apprenticeship. And that may be, you know, observations where your assessor's coming in to visit you, or review sessions with you and your line manager to see how you're progressing, you know. So yeah, you would need time in the working week. And we are as flexible as possible. I think the nice thing about LMP is we truly are employer-led. So we don't have a training day. We don't pull you out of the classroom. Everything we do is either remote via Teams or face-to-face, where the assessor would come out to you. And we do that at times suited to you. So you could dictate when that happens. If that's a Monday, that's a Monday. That's what your assessor would build your training plan around that. So although you do need to have time in the working week, we try and be as flexible to that as possible.
So the second question I've got is, will the planning and implementation of school-based activities be part of the apprenticeship from part of my normal working day to day? Will there be activities that will require my school to accommodate? So I think with that question is quite a lot of like the things that you're already doing at school. If you're already, you know, if you're developing these skills further, so it might be kind of meeting with your class teacher or your subject lead or your SENCO, and you're talking about maybe reviewing the strategies that you're using with children, or you're talking about the planning, or you're making sort of these resources, it does count sort of towards your off the job time, because you're learning and you're developing your skills further. And in regards to what would school need to accommodate, they need to make sure that you've got all of the experiences in place so you are successful as part of the qualification. So I know with both qualifications, the level 3 as well as the level 5 teaching assistant programs, you do need to get some sort of experience of working in partnership with external professionals. So that might be the SALT team, that might be the educational psychologists, as well as making sure that you're aware of the strategies that they've recommended, so then you can employ that within your practice, but also making sure that you've got a mentor that you can meet with maybe once or twice a month. So if you do have any questions, or if there's any experiences that you haven't already gained, you can then go and get those, if that sort of makes sense.
I've got a question here. It says, what support will I receive throughout my apprenticeship? So at LMP, we are set up to make sure that you are fully supported throughout your programme. So you would have your assessor, we have a learning support manager, a learning success manager, sorry. You would have your line manager, and you would also have the account manager that oversees the relationship with your school. So throughout all of that, you would be very supported. So if you were, or let's take, for example, your journey throughout the apprenticeship. So while you were on programme with us, you would have every 12 weeks, you would have a learning review. That would take place with your line manager and with your assessor. That's where they would sit down, they'd go through your portfolio of evidence, they'd talk about kind of your successes and challenges, and they would drive kind of what the next few months are going to look like in terms of targets. Outside of that, we have our learning success manager, as I say, and they would be doing check-in calls with you throughout your programme to make sure that you are happy, confident, and that you have everything you need to progress well. They'd also touch base with you towards the end of your programme to look whether you are, considering a next step. So if you were doing your level 3, they would come to you to see if you were considering going on to your level 5, and then they would be able to support you through that. Outside of that, say, for example, with the University of Chichester Academies Trust, anybody in that kind of trust that's on an apprenticeship, I'm their account manager, so I would always be in the background. So I work really closely with Phil, for example, to make sure that everything's going well and working smoothly. So throughout the whole programme, you do have that kind of whole triad. And even beyond that, we have a quality team, we have an endpoint assessment manager. So there's so much that goes on. So you would be very much supported throughout your programme, and there's lots of different touch points to make sure that you've got the opportunity to feed back to us should you have any concerns or want to celebrate successes as well.
So the next question I've got from Jules Williamson is that, could you run through example jobs with a school that match each 3 pathways for the specialist level 5 teaching assistant program? So I'd say in regards to the SEN route, that would be yet again sort of higher level teaching assistants that are mainly delivering specialist interventions whilst working alongside external professionals to deliver those to the children or students at school. The emotional and social pathway is for, yet again, staff members that are supporting children with their emotional as well as social needs. So that might be, that they've got part pastoral whilst also working closely with sort of their emotional well-being leads, as well as their SENCO. And then the curriculum pathway, yet again, is for like a higher level teaching assistants that are possibly delivering, lessons or specialist interventions to students that require extra support. So I know one of the secondary schools that I work really closely with, they offer phonics lessons to their year 8 students to fill in any gaps. So that would be one example of a curriculum-based pathway that they would go down.
Perfect. And another question I've got here is, I can't find my certificates for maths and English. What does that mean for me? So as said before, off the press, there is new rules now if you're an adult learner, so you don't have to do maths and English on programme with us. But either way, we do have that intensive kind of IAG at the beginning to make sure that you are set up for success on your programme. So although maths and English, if you don't have your certificates, we would do initial assessments to make sure that you are at the working level. We also have access to something called the personal learning record, which is an official record. So we can log on there, and any of your prior learning should be on there. And we can use that as evidence of prior achievements. So if you had your maths and English on there, then we would use that for your exemptions. Yeah, hopefully that answers that question. Let's have a look.
And then I think we've got one more question. Would you be able to apply for the specialist level 5 teaching assistant course if you've already got the level 4 qualification and degree? So yeah, again, we would do an information, advice and guidance call with you. So if your degree is in teaching, then you wouldn't be eligible to do the specialist teaching assistant qualification because you've already got a qualification that's to your qualified teaching status. However, if the degree is in a different sector, then we would do that call with you to make sure that you are eligible.
Yeah, perfect. And I see here now another question. It says, can you start with the level 3 and then work up to level 5? Absolutely, yeah. So as you would, if you were going on to a degree, for example, the first year of a degree is all about setting you up for success in your second year. So having that foundation of knowledge, and I think you should really think about that when looking at your career pathway as a teaching assistant. The level 3 will give you all of the kind of foundation of knowledge that you need to successfully move into that level 5. So absolutely, we would encourage you to look at that whole pathway piece. If you've already got your level 3 or your level 4, as Scarlett said, then absolutely you would go on to the level 5. But we look at it very much on a case by case situation. So during that IAG call, we would be asking you all of these questions. What is your prior experience? What are your prior qualifications? And then we'd be able to advise you and guide you accordingly.
I think that's it for today.
I think that's it, yeah. So hopefully you found that really useful. I just want to take this opportunity again to thank Katie and Phil for joining us today. It was so, it's invaluable to have your feedback. You are living and breathing apprenticeships and the strategies that we try and embed. So thank you so much for your time. This recording will be sent out to everybody who is on the call or registered today. So please look out for that. And do reach out if you would like to book in that IAG call or onto any of our other webinars. But thank you so much for your time, everybody. I really enjoyed that. It was great to kind of delve in deep to our teaching assistant pathways. Yeah, thank you.